All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our 3 o'clock presentation today. I'm Travis Downs. I'm the Director of Sales here at Formax. I appreciate you taking a little time with us this afternoon to go over the Cut True 28A Guillotine cutter. Today, I'll be doing a sales presentation going over the features of this machine, some of the things that we're really excited about, and why we think it's such a hot product. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I had to wrestle this presentation away from Sean Simmons. Back in May, he did a presentation on our Guillotine cutters where he did the launch of the Cut True 23S, which replaced our very popular Cut True 22S cutter, which now has a similar look and feel to this machine, just with less automated features, smaller footprint. He also went over the Cut True 29A and its new full color touchscreen that we enlarged to make it easier for your customers, and he gave you a sneak preview of this Cut True 28A. I'll try to do half as good a job as he did and give you some really good points about this machine, how to sell it to your customers, and what markets you should be looking at for this machine. Also, just to make sure I don't forget at the end of the presentation, if you are heading out to Printing United in September, we will have this machine at the show, as well as a whole bunch of other Formax machines, including a new solution that you'll see Doug McCallum, who's my partner on the webinar today working the cameras, presenting in August. So a lot to be excited about. I hope you'll be out in Las Vegas and get a chance to get your hands on some of our equipment. But for today, what we're really focused on is this Cut True 28A cutter. So the place to start is, for all of our folks on the presentation today that sell this equipment or sell digital print equipment, sell finishing equipment, you've had customers that have either asked you if you could sell them a guillotine cutter or told you they need a guillotine cutter. And typically speaking, you got a couple things to think about, and maybe you immediately used to go to, I got to qualify them out and I got to get some questions answered. No more. What we believe is that the Cut True 28A is the right fit paper cutter, a unique product at a great price point that really answers that question of, hey, I need a paper cutter. You say, I've got a machine for you. So let me go over some of the reasons why and how you're going to want to present this to your customers. So when you're out and you're calling on customers and they're looking for a paper cutter, they have a few things that are really important to them. The first one's always going to be capability. What size papers they need to cut down. So with this Cut True 28A, you got an 18.9 inch cutting area. You can cut a stack up to about 3 inches or a little more than 3 inches. So, looking at your full reams of paper. And you've got 18.9 inches behind the blade. So what does that all mean? Kind of boring, but what's important about it is the biggest paper cutter marketplace is not your large print shops anymore looking for paper cutters that are 26 inches and larger. What your big marketplace is, the up and down the street businesses that you're selling to every day that want to take better advantage of their in-house printing equipment. They want to do more work on demand. So for all those customers that might have bought machines that can print on 11 by 17 or 12 by 18 or even 13 by 19 from our copier and printer dealer friends on the webinar today, this machine really hits the sweet spot for the cuts they're going to need to make to create their different pieces to give to their customers. For example, you might have a restaurant chain nearby that needs to cut down their mailed postcards, business cards for their management staff, menus or brochures. This is the right fit machine. It can handle those common printed sizes they can do in-house. So you got to get through those capabilities. You got to have a machine that can handle the paper sizes your customers want to cut down. The next thing you got to think about is environment. Paper cutters can be a little bit intimidating. You got a relatively large metal machine here, but there's a couple things you have to make sure you can get by for the customer right away. One, you can get this 18.9 inch programmable cutter through a common door. It goes right through a 32 inch door. No problems there, no rigging needed. You can move it right in. It comes with an all metal stand just 4 pieces you assemble, and then the cutting head gets put in place, and then your customer's up and operational. Another really important thing, no special power requirements. So when you're going to your customer, you can tell them they can use a standard wall outlet, 110 power. They don't need to run a dedicated line or have 220. So in that case, you're not quoting them an electrician's bill on top of their new paper cutter, which is another advantage. It's also UL certified, which is a big deal. So you can hit those safety environments for your customers as well. So good one to know. You're getting right past those concerns about the environment. Fits to a standard door, 110 power. And then we got to talk about feature set. So we're in a digital environment. Doug is running our cameras with an iPad right now. All of us use smartphones and tablets as part of our day-to-day go-to-market with customers. Even products like our folder inserters or our Atlas creasers, they've got these big, easy-to-use, full-color touchscreens. That's what customers expect today. Now, I'm going to take a good look at this touchscreen a little bit later in the presentation, but for the sake of the early portion here, what we need to consider is, with this big full-color 7-inch touchscreen, what you're giving your customers is a great way to make their jobs easier and more efficient. By saving them time in stepping through their different paper cutting jobs, you're going to help them make money. That's the big benefit of having an automatic machine with programmable features. You're saving the customer time in front of the cutter, and that all goes to that return on investment. If you're cutting their time by a third or by half to do a job, for example, like if you've got a small marketing agency doing a sheet of business cards, if you can program in all of these cuts into the cutter, it's going to save the customer a heck of a lot of time versus moving step by step through this large sheet of cards. And the second part of that programmability is accuracy, right? The less wasted sheets you have, the more money the customer's going to make on their jobs. So it's important to know that with a touchscreen, you're really selling on 2 things. 1, saving them time. 2, making sure the machine's really accurate for the applications that they want to do. The next part of those automated features, the blade and the clamp are both driven by 2-button operation. So in that case, you're not standing in front of the machine and having to bring the clamp down or bring the blade down. All of that's going to be handled just with 2-button operation, which saves the customer a lot of time between steps in their job. And also, you have laser safety curtains, and I think that's the automated feature that gets overlooked. What customers will lose time on is if you have a plexiglass safety cover you got to pull down over the paper, each time you make a cut, you're going to have to do that, move the paper, close it again, and then make your cut. With the safety curtains, it's just a quick touch, move your paper, and then you're back into operation. So the more that you can leverage those automated features, the more money your customer is going to make using this paper cutter. You're going to sell it to them, and then they're going to be happy because they're saving money on the time they're spent doing their operations. Now, I've mentioned safety twice. Once, UL certifications. 2, with these laser curtains. And when we're talking about the types of customers that are buying a machine like the Cut-Tru 28A, you're looking at things like mortgage companies or real estate providers. You're looking at schools. You're looking at vocational schools as another one, hospitality, law offices. These are businesses where safety is critical, where it's not a traditional print for pay environment, and they need to make sure that the equipment they're using is safe. With the Cut-Tru 28A, if a customer says that their primary concern is safety, here's what you can tell them. Before they can even make a cut on this machine, 1, you have to turn on the power switch. 2, you got to turn the key. You have to have the key in the machine and then turn it to get to operation. 3, you got to use 2 hands to operate the cutter, 2-button operation. And then 4, you have laser curtains for safety. So you've got 4 checkpoints before you can even make a cut with this machine. It's not going to get a heck of a lot safer than that in terms of making sure that customers are able to safely operate this machine in any environment. So if you think about those schools, the vocational school example is a good one. You get a graphic arts department, they buy a paper cutter, and maybe they're doing marketing applications for some local small businesses. There's two things that are going to mean everything to them. You got a bunch of different student operators. You got to have programmable jobs in the touchscreen where they can save and switch between applications. And then the machine's got to be safe. The next point of why the Cut-Through 28A is such a good machine is quality. So, I'm almost a little bit proud to say you all saw this machine and got a sneak peek at Printing United in Atlanta last year. And then you got another sneak peek in May. And now we're fully at launch with inventory coming in 2 weeks. So you can start putting these on your demo floors and getting them in front of your customers. But that's all part of the process with the Formax design, where we put a heck of a lot. When one of these machines comes to market, boy, they work really well. They've got great, easy-to-use features like this touchscreen. The safety features are ready, and it's going to be a great value for your customers. So all of that design, QC, assembly, and then support from our service team here is happening right out of New Hampshire. You'll have parts available. You'll have people to call when you need help, and we'll make sure we got good machines for your customers. And finally, some people might have this as the top of their most important list, which is the budget. So you've got this machine that I've gone over, your capabilities with your cutting widths, the features with the programmability, that it's a great fit for almost any environment in terms of getting it in the door, having the right power, it's safe, it's well built, and the retail price is $12,995, which if you go out and compare it in the marketplace, there's nothing that checks both of those boxes. All of these features, the quality, and then that price point down under $13,000, which really fits into a lot of budgets, which we're got quality price for what customers are looking for. So the Cut-Through 28A really is that right fit cutter for where to start when customers are looking for one of these machines. We can go bigger and we can go smaller, and we'll talk about that. But as your starting point, if you're putting a machine on your floor that you want to show customers, this is it. This is the one that's really the sweet spot and a unique competitive product. Now, for all of that bluster, let me show you a better look at the touchscreen and some of the functionality within it. Okay. All right, so here's a full color touchscreen. Change that from inches to metric if that's what you prefer for your print environment. You do have the ability to adjust if you're back during your cutting applications. And on the front of the machine, one thing I slipped by because it didn't really hit my safety features was there is an adjustment, a fine adjustment. So you'll notice I just made a small change on the front of the machine. I turned the knob and I moved my back gauge position. What's nice about that is people make...
Okay, should be good.
We just paused for a second there. We might have had a little bit of lag in our internet. It gets tired in the afternoon, same as me, old man. So back to that touchscreen. So that's your main screen when you step in, and that's great if you're just doing a job where you're cutting some sheets in half, or if you have a simple application that doesn't require a program, you just punch in your value, the back gauge will move, and then you'll be able to make your cuts. Next thing we got to take a look at is programs. So this machine has 99 different programs in it. And for those businesses that we've talked a little bit about today, 99 is probably plenty for the common applications that they're going to do. But if I want to set up a new job, the screen's easy, okay? What I want to show you is, I want to show you my setup here where I have a job programmed in, and what's nice about and you've got two different options for how the back gauge is going to move. You're going to have an absolute step where you tell the back gauge 17.5 inches. It's going to move all the way back to 17.5 inches for your cut. If I switch that to relative, it's going to move relative to the back gauge. And those are to the last position. So for example, if I want to move 2 inches per step, that's where I can do that. So if I go into my job here, now I can edit my job in this screen. So I got my first cut at absolute. Maybe I want to change my second cut and make it relative. So if the first cut's 17.5, if I make my next step relative, it's going to move 11.5 inches from the last position of the back gauge, not the actual position of the back gauge. This triangle with a line at the top will bring me back to my first cutting step. The triangle with the line at the bottom brings me to my last step in my job. And then the 2 in the middle will move me to my next step or my previous step. I have this piece of paper with the line on it. That's where I add the next step in my job. And then you get your trash bin if you want to get rid of your application. So very simple to use. At the top of the screen, it's showing you where the back gauge is positioned right now for your application. Here's another good one. This is your divide and cut. So, for example, you have a lot of customers that they might be doing an application where they just want to cut down a piece of paper into like inch sets. So, they might need to take an 18-inch piece of paper and they want 3-inch pieces. So what happens is I program in 18 inches and I'm doing 3-inch pieces. So that means I'm making 6 cuts. I'm not going to have any waste, and that'll be my job. Doug, if you put me on main screen for a second, I'll give the example. So what I'm talking about with those divided cuts is, and not to get into too nerdy speak about paper cutting, but this job, for example, has 4 pieces, and the picture runs all the way to the edge. It's a full bled piece. There's gutters between the cards that need to be cut out. That divide and cut would work really well if each of these pieces was stacked on top of each other with no gap in between. Then my job would be set up just to cut each piece down the page, not accounting for this gap or this stripe in between the cards. So that divide and cut's a nice feature. If you think about a school that's got a ream of paper and they want to cut it down to 3 pieces, so they have 3 1/3 sheets that are the absent ballots or the tardy slips or whatever it might be, it becomes really easy to do that using that divide and cut feature. While we're on the screen, same idea with your different job types. This is a cover for one of our catalogs. We make these in-house. So you think about Formax in our marketing department here. What if we were the other Formax out there that does food handling equipment and they want to do their work in-house for marketing? Same idea. They have a paper cutter on site, you got a nice digital printer. You set up your job to trim off the edges and you have a nice catalog cover ready to go. So back into that touchscreen. So I'm back to my home screen. I've showed you a little bit about where you program jobs and what those jobs look like. You also have your service area, and there's a few things that are happening in this screen. One, you've got calibration settings if you need to recalibrate your back gauge. It's got step-by-step with pictures if you need to lubricate the machine or change the blade. You've got access to service screens for your technicians that are working on the machines. Shows you different sequences and sensors that are happening. So you got a whole bunch of access in that machine for how to see what's going on with your system. Very easy serviceable machine for your technicians. So Doug, you're going to come back to the main screen. So that gives you a good look at that touchscreen, which obviously with all the different features that the 28A offers, The touchscreen's the big one. Touchscreens are important because you can see them advertised, but they don't always have such an easy interface. It's not easy to see. It's not accessible for every operator. The 28A has that covered. So you can drop this machine into any environment and have different operators work with it and really train them up and make sure they're going to have success with it. So back to those customers in that marketplace. So we've established you have a right fit cutter. You've got a machine at a great budget point, down under $13,000. It's well built, it's high quality with an easy to use screen. It's fully automatic, which is more than just the back gauge, the blade and the clamp, but also these laser curtains. So you're removing any manual interventions the customer has to make beyond maybe using that wooden push block that comes with the machine to knock the paper into position. All of that means that they're going to be able to save money with the cutter. They don't have to stand in front of it as long to make their applications happen. Right fit for any environment. It fits through a door. It's got that 110 power. And it's safe. So you're covering all your bases with this machine. Now, what happens when it's not the right fit for your customer? And that's one of the advantages of being a Formax dealer. All of the good things about this machine, like the basics, high quality, safe, well built, all that stuff exists. But yes, we can go bigger or we can go smaller. When you're stepping down our line, you have a couple different options because typically customers are looking for your cutting widths, but also features. And that usually has a lot to do with the clamp. For example, you have an option for a manual clamp where you're actually going to have to use a spindle to bring it down and put it into position. Something like the Cut True 23S. Now, the advantage of that is you have a whole lot of increments of rotation. So if you're dealing with something like a booklet cover or softer media, you won't have just a single point of pressure coming down. You'll be able to move it into position. And then there's also semi-automatic machines like the Cut True 27S, which you'll still have 2-button operation. So you'll drop your clamp and blade automatically, but you'll have to move your paper into position manually by using a spindle to bring it back or forward depending on the application. When customers want to go bigger, it usually has a lot to do with wanting either a 20-inch or a 28-inch cutting area, or they want a hydraulic clamp. And we can get there with the Cut True 29H and Cut True 31H for those larger machines. All the same quality, big touch screens, easy to use, but they just require some different features, and those are usually more industrial print for pay type customers doing a heavier duty workload on those cutters. So you got options there, but the place to start is the paper cutter marketplace is a big one. Where customers are doing this digital print work today and trying to bring more of the work in-house, trying to do more of their own mailing and advertising. If you think about the local real estate office in your town, they're going out and they're finding properties and they want to get in the marketplace quickly. The more that they can print out their open house flyers, cut them down and be ready, the more that they can get new mailers out week over week without paying a premium every time they turn it over, or maybe for small batches, the more profitable they're going to be and the more customers they're going to be able to reach. When you're thinking about a school, being able to have high quality digital equipment that they can use easily and know it's safe, it's a big deal. And those things apply whether you're trying to sell to a law firm or a financial services provider. Regardless, when you're talking about the Cut True 28A, consider this your best place to start. A well-built, high-quality machine with top-notch accessibility features and at a great price point. Now, if you need a quote on this machine, if you need a demonstration, if you have some questions about things I might not have covered today, what I'd recommend is reach out to your Formax account executives. And if you don't know who that is today, reach out to me, Travis Downs. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. So thank you very much for taking some time for us. I hope you all have a strong close to your July. And don't forget about Printing United. Early this year, second week of September, I expect to see all of you in Las Vegas come by the booth, see at least one really exciting new machine and a whole bunch of other equipment that you can sell to your customers. We appreciate the opportunity. Have a terrific week.